Our understanding of how the genetic code in our cells produces organisms we see around us is growing all the time. So let's talk about gene expression. When a gene codes for a protein that is synthesized in the cell, the gene is said to be expressed. Most of the DNA does not actually code for proteins. Remember that we have 21,000 genes, but 3 billion pairs of bases. So not all the DNA actually makes up genes. Some parts are not genes, they don't code for any proteins. Scientists are still discovering what the non-coding part of DNA does. One thing they have discovered is that the non-coding parts of the DNA are involved in switching genes, or parts of genes, which means they turn these genes on and off. In other words, they either allow the genes to be expressed or turn them on, or they repress the expression of the genes, so they turn the genes off, and so the genes are not being expressed. The non-coding DNA is part of the answer to the question of how we can synthesize so many different chemicals with so few genes. Each gene can control the synthesis of lots of different proteins. This may depend on how much of a gene is switched on or off, or which other genes are switched on and off at the same time. So if we have 3 genes, we can make, let's say, 50 proteins out of them. We might be wondering how that happens. We have non-coding parts of our genome that control what these genes do. So for example, they can turn 2 of the 3 genes at one time to make a specific protein. They can turn 2 other genes at one time to make another specific protein. They can turn each gene individually on at one time, or they can start to play around with which parts of the genes they want to turn on and which parts they want to turn off, each time giving a completely different code, generating completely different proteins. Scientists think that variations in the non-coding areas of our DNA may affect how our genes are expressed, and this in turn affects the phenotype, or the physical appearance, or the biochemistry of an organism. So the phenotype could be hair color, could be length, could be whether the individual has a disease or not. This is the phenotype. It is the result of the expression or the non-expression of some genes. Insects change dramatically as they grow. The DNA in the cells of a butterfly, it's the same DNA in the same butterfly when the butterfly was a caterpillar before it became a butterfly. So how are their phenotypes so different, even though they have the same genes? Different genes are switched on or off at different times to produce different phenotypes and give different bodies, the caterpillar and the butterfly, for example.